What is the stupidest thing you thought as a child? I thought Santa hated me because he didn't give me presents on Christmas. I'm Jewish and my parents didn't want me to be that kid who told his classmates that Santa doesn't exist, so I ended up believing in Santa until I was about 8 when I saw two mall Santas get into a fight in the parking lot of the mall. Great way to figure out Santa isn't real. I figured out Santa wasn't real when I got a She-Ra crystal castle and no She-Ra doll. I tried to jam a Barbie in the castle and broke it, followed by an epic meltdown and the castle being taken away. I told my parents Santa wasn't real because he wouldn't have made that mistake. My powers of deduction peaked when I was 4. What killed Santa for me was getting a gift with double-sided tape on it. I grabbed it, my hand stuck. I inspected the wrap job and came to the conclusion that Santa would be much too professional to run out of regular tape, unlike my mother. I thought that any time any woman went to the hospital, it was to have a baby. My 98-year-old great-grandmother was in the hospital and all I wanted to know is when the baby was gonna get here. This is really common with young kids. I think they are shown hospitals as the place where babies are born instead of the place where sick hurt people go to make them less afraid. I dunno, I was born in the same hospital where my grandpa later passed away, and I would only refer to it as the hospital where grandpa died, rather than where I was born. To be fair, you don't remember being born there. However, I'm sure your grandpa dying was seared in your mind. My sister was born with Down syndrome and a congenital heart defect, and for years every time she went to the hospital I started crying because I was afraid they were gonna keep her and do another surgery or something. I thought burglary was a profession and that criminals' shifts started when the sun set and they'd be on all night robbing houses. To calm my fears, I would put my blinds up a little, lay down in a pile of stuffed animals and freeze, staring out the window. My thought was I'd look like a doll, and if a burglar saw me through the window, they wouldn't realize I was a human, and then I could get up and call 911 when they looked away. I fell asleep in that stuffed animal pile every night for 2 years. Words? I did that too, but I was hiding from the aliens. I felt like I had no defense against aliens, because I pictured them taking my roof off and beaming me up, lol. Yeah, but they don't abduct dolls. That's why you hide in a pile of stuffed animals. I think maybe I had seen E.T. and interpreted it in entirely the wrong way. I thought catching on fire as an adult is common because of all the fire safety in elementary and them beating stop, drop, and roll into our heads. And quicksand. I thought it would play a much larger role in my life. Right? It seemed like every single movie and TV show growing up had some episode where someone had to escape quicksand, and I was like, oh shit, I better be prepared for when I inevitably fall in quicksand as an adult. I have fallen into quicksand multiple times in my adult life, but I'm a land surveyor. I feel that way about the Bermuda Triangle. Fun fact, ships that pass through the Bermuda Triangle aren't any more or less likely to disappear than in any other equivalently sized patch of ocean. The large number of disappearances are simply because it's a high traffic area that a great many ships have passed through. My address was 25,029. My parents told me that represented my mom's age 25 and dad's age 29 when they got married, and the 0 was for how many kids they had at the time. As a little kid I thought that rule mom's age, #OF kids, dad's age applied to all home addresses. I would always see houses with addresses like 05785 or something, and wonder how a 5-year-old married an 85-year-old and already had 7 kids. I believed this for far longer than I'm happy to admit. By that logic, the house I grew up in belonged to a 13-year-old and a 55-year-old with no kids. And mine belongs to two 10-year-old kids with 3 kids. I wonder how many parents got their kids into trouble for telling their kids wacky lies like this. Lol. When I was a kid, I thought ice cream sandwiches were literally 2 pieces of bread with ice cream in the middle. I really wanted one. I went to ask my mom if I could have one while she was napping, and she half-consciously said we didn't have any. I said, that's okay, I'll make one. She said nothing. I quickly learned ice cream sandwiches were not, in fact, 2 pieces of white bread with a spoonful of vanilla ice cream in the middle. I thought this too. I'd only heard of an ice cream sandwich in a babysitter's club book and it's the obvious conclusion. Funnily enough, this was the time when my favorite ice cream was the Monaco bar, which is in fact an actual ice cream sandwich. We just don't call them that here. Same here. About 5 to 6 maybe, but mine was my mom asking if I wanted an ice cream sandwich. And I was puzzled. I was envisioning a scoop of ice cream between two slabs of white bread. It didn't sound appealing. My mom saw my confusion and just handed me one. It is my favorite ice cream to this day. They do eat ice cream sandwiches like this in Thailand. I thought people died by blowing the candles on their 100 years party. I just thought that people died when they turned 100. My mom knew this person who was either 98 or 99, and so I said, so she's either going to be 99 or she's going to die, and my mom agreed. They don't die, they just can't level up any higher. You generally stop leveling around 40. After that, you just watch as power creep pushes newer players past you. This is really kind of haunting yet sweet. I support it. I used to think people died on their birthdays, they were born on them after all. I used to be so worried about if I'd get to eat my cake on my last birthday or not. Every year the trees in our yard would lose their leaves. Every year my dad raked up the leaves and put them into yard waste bags. With me so far, kid logic dictated that my dad kept the bags of leaves in the shed so he could glue them back onto the trees next spring. I did not grow up to become an arborist. You are not alone, my friend. I thought my mom was sneaking outside at night during the spring and gluing all the leaves back on because the cold weather made trees sick, so the leaves would fall off. I saw her outside gardening all the time, so it just made sense. The only thing I couldn't figure out was why she was being so sneaky about it, cause I wanted to help. I noticed that I was able to jump off of the playground and land on my feet and be perfectly fine, so my child mind immediately decided I was a superhero and could land from any height and be perfectly fine. I went to my friend's house, jumped off his roof, and the next thing I remember is crying until my mom picked me up. I thought so too, but I jumped out of the back of a moving vehicle because I saw one of my friends and my parents didn't stop the truck. It didn't go so well. Narrator: and they never saw their parents again. Me too. I jumped off my family's stairway, broke my nose face first into the water heater at the bottom of the stairway. That the eject button on my dad's car would send me flying through the roof. Now I imagine a dad doing that when he has gotten enough of the kid, just push a button and send him off the roof. He did threaten to when my siblings and I got annoying. What did the eject button do? My dad had a car with a turbo button, and I thought that would make it shoot flames out the back like the Batmobile. He let me believe that until right before he sold the car, when I was finally allowed to push the turbo button. So disappointing, but at least I wasn't sad about the car being sold. The eject button ejected the CD from the console. Also, that's hilarious. That if two artists made a song together, it must mean they are a couple. I thought Donnie and Mary were a married couple for so long. Found out they were siblings and was like EWWWW. But they are married. The whole White Stripes fiasco must have been a roller coaster for you. TBH, I'm still not really sure if they are brother and sister or that they used to be married. I legit keep forgetting. Used to be married, but refer to each other as brother and sister. It's weird. White was Meg's last name that Jack took when they got married. I loved watching Wheel of Fortune as a young kid, and I was actually really disappointed when my parents told me Pat and Vanna weren't married. I thought that every song that played on the radio was being performed somewhere live, and when you turned up the volume the singer would sing louder at his/her venue. Oh, this but double for me, because my grandfather was a radio presenter when I was a kid. So I'd hear my papa on the radio and know he was in a room somewhere. I thought there was a band there with him cranking out the hits. It didn't help that in true grandfather style he encouraged the belief. In the very first decades of radio this actually happened. Live shows were more common. I used to think all movies were being performed live and streamed to RTV. I appreciated Star Wars so much because those actors managed to do it exactly the same way every single time. That would be super complicated, but I could how you would think that. I'm sure this is pretty common, but I used to think before color TV everything was black and white. I remember as a child asking my nan what it was like when they saw color for the first time. Asking mine that question would result in a racist tirade. The first time I saw a color was when he drank from our drinking fountain. So the town banded together and we ran the color boy out to town. Calvin's dad explains color. This is one of my favorites. The ones where Calvin's dad messes with him are always great. When we were little, my twin sister was convinced that chicken, beef, etc. was produced by vacuuming the meat out of the living animal. The animal would then walk around all wobbly and meatless until more meat grew back. This one makes me laugh at the idea of the wobbly animals. It reminds me of the ending of the Enigma of Megarafault. DRR. That logic is what brought all those browser farm games, where you don't slaughter animals, but rather receive some meat every cycle from them. Not me, but my son. He didn't want us to get a new TV, because he liked the shows on the old one. To be fair, my parents have said similar things about their computer and email. My soul wanted to know, if her son got a new phone, could he still check his emails? My Mill just called about this a couple of days ago. Mill, if I switch from an Android to an iPhone, will I lose all my emails? Me, no. Just add your email account to your new phone and all your emails will be there. Mill HMM. Okay, never mind. I'll just keep using this phone. I don't want to lose any emails. When I was around 6, my mom's grandmother passed away, and my dad's father passed away. I told my mom that her grandfather should marry my dad's mom, so they wouldn't be lonely. Went to my aunt's funeral and asked everyone when we'd see her again. My kid melted down last year at the cemetery when we visited my mom's grave because everyone can see Grandma Mary but I can't. We had to be a lot more careful about our words after that. She was 5. I know someone whose widowed grandma on one side of the family married his widower grandpa on the other side, so he became his own first cousin. All dogs were male, all cats were female. I also always thought that, but at the same time I knew they were different species, so I always wondered how they reproduced. I mean, nowadays I know this isn't true, but I don't feel that it isn't true. My instinct would always be to ask a dog owner what's his name, and a cat owner what's her name. Well, I can relate to this, but I think it's because I'm from Germany and here it's der Hund and die Cats, so it's a male pronoun for dog and a female for cats. That's probably why I thought the same as a kid.